In theory, it should be something really simple, but like many things, you can look at it on all of these different layers. Now, we've talked about selective perception. That is, you see what you want to see. You see what you're able to see. And we've used the example of the car accident on the corner, and it's this, two cars crash into each other, and the doctor sees the blood and wants to know who's hurt. The lawyer wants to see who's at fault. The police wants to make the report, and the mother sees somebody's son, and the little kid sees this really great crash. Boom, there's cool stuff happening everywhere. And who's right? And they all are from their perspective. So if you think about perspective as the place from which you're observing the world around you, and your perception is how you are evaluating. So it's what you're able to see, but it also includes the evaluation that you're putting on it. And so if you understand that at any given time, you're looking at the world around you from your perspective, which is made up of the sum total of your experiences and your interpretations of those experiences. So you're looking at it from your perspective and your perception of that perspective. When you use the vibrations of divine light, which is infinite intelligence, knows all things, it created all things, you're created by it, it's flowing through you, and you are using it, this cosmic consciousness of you and the cosmic consciousness of the universe. When it's flowing through you, it's infinite intelligence, omniscient wisdom, and omnipotent unconditional love. So it is unconditional. It will manifest as you want it to manifest. And so it's flowing through you. The basic activation is activating your human aspect to understand how it's flowing so that you can start to evolve your body instrument, your light instrument, your psychic instrument, and your cosmic consciousness as it is perceived by your human perspective. Okay? And because it's unconditional, it manifests through your thoughts, through your subconscious and conscious thoughts, and your emotions are what give you the fuel or the motivation to put these into action. So it's manifesting through you, and you are collaborating, and co-creating with it in your actions. Okay, so this is the base that I wanted to talk from. This is the base of who you are as a divine soul having a human experience. When we look at what the world is going through and all of the changes, and we've talked about this in other conversations, there's one other element that I remember, I guess it was maybe 9-10 years ago, when Find Your Tribe was the big thing. Find your tribe, vibe your tribe. And it was kind of the marketing thing on the internet. But when you look at how that has manifested itself, extrapolated itself out, it's created more otherisms, especially on the aftermath of the coronavirus homestay. I don't like to call it lockdown. I called it homestay. But after the coronavirus, where people were moved into looking at the world in a different way. Now, where they really got into trouble a lot was they were looking at the current situation of when they were staying at home and not having that human contact that they were used to. They were looking at what was going around them from the old perspective. And so they felt the loss. Because you see, you need to really understand that if you allow your perspective to shift and change, and allow yourself to let go of the perspective, to look within, to get your answers, let love flow up, that's going to change your perspective, your point of view, where you're standing and looking at the world around you. So the deeper you go into the divine love of you, then your perspective holds and contains more unconditional love. But now let's go back to the problems of when you were having to stay home and looking at it from the old perspective. You saw lack. Not everybody did, but in general, it was easy to see lack. It was easy to see loss. And it was easy if you hung with that the whole time. That's where lashing out, I don't want to do this, I don't want to do that, boom, 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 which created more strife in individual worlds and strife in the world at large. And then coming out of the pandemic, you see the ones that are living it the hardest are the ones who are still wanting to return to the way things were, and they're never going to. The world has shifted too much. There's too many new things going on. And so if you know someone who is looking at the world that way, wanting it to return to the way it was, help them to shift the perspective. Help them to let go of it and shift the perspective within so that they can relax in themselves. We've been talking about that in other conversations. Let love flow up, and it'll give them a new perspective. With a new perspective, then also when you let light flow through your thoughts and ideas and transform them into illumination, it's going to expand your perception. So it's perspective, where you're looking from, and perception of how you're interpreting the things around you. It's really important as light workers, if we're going to do our light in the most powerful way possible, we need to be aware of, where am I holding an old perspective that I can let go of and shift my perspective deeper within me, and ask the divine light that's flowing through me to transform the old perspective into a new one that is deeper into the unconditional love of me. We've got the whole UAP, unidentified aerial phenomenon, which is the rename for the old UFO, unidentified flying objects. We've got the whole conversation about the possibility. Please note I said possibility because that's what the world conversation is starting. At least they're saying the possibility that there's other sentient life forces here on Earth. You know, and light workers, if you've really gone deep into your light, you know there are other sentient life forces. If you started to remember where you came from before you were born, then you know beyond the shadow of your own human doubt. And so your perspective is you do your light work from that. But also too, we've got the war games that are amping up on different sides of the world. We've got that 1% power brokers, they're amping up the things. And the thing is, and we've talked about this again in other videos, the old perspective hopes that our leaders will change, or we shrug our shoulders and just try to take care of our own little nest. Okay, but it's time for us to shift that perspective to a larger one, to really shine our light and really spread our light, and really let the groundswell come from the boots on the ground up to the point that our leaders will have to change in order to be in front of us, instead of waiting for them to change and for us to follow. This is really, really important, because all we need as light workers, as awakening divine souls having human experiences, and even our divine souls are on the ascension, because the more they learn to co-create within this collective consciousness, and the more they learn to collaborate with all of these divine souls who come from different places before they incarnated, then the more they are able to assist their human aspect to evolve too. Now, if you're not deep into your divine soul knowing and you're listening from your human ego intellect, that's fine. That's your perspective. Okay. So what you want to do is just really flirt with the idea of, well, what if I do have a divine soul? What if I do have a divine spark that is consciously aware of my connection to everything that ever was, is, and will be? What if my natural state is cosmic consciousness of infinite unconditional love? What if that were the truth? Then what would I do different? How would I behave differently? And start to change your perspective on that. The minute you decide to change your perspective, then you allow your perceptions to shift and change also in the way you live it. If you're listening to this where you're halfway between your human aspect and the awareness of this divine soul knowing, then keep going deeper. You've got more practice at letting go of what you think you know so that you can go deeper into what you know you know. And if you're in that place, I would say, relax into yourself and say, what if the cosmic consciousness of me, the infinite, omniscient, omnipotent, unconditional love that created me, what if this is flowing through me? What if I were to really know that and know that I know that on deeper levels? What would I do different? And those are the perspectives that you want to shift and change so that you're able to perceive unconditional love and express unconditional love in all new ways. And if you're deep, deep, deep into your divine soul knowing, and you know that there is no separation between your human aspect and your divine soul knowing, then for you, I say, relax into yourself and say, what if there's something new to discover about this cosmic consciousness? What if I let go? Where do I feel my calling on even deeper levels? Where can I serve on even deeper levels? So if you notice, it's not that different from one to the next. You're just asking yourself in slightly different ways to go deeper, but it is all about shifting your perspective and no longer asking the world to mirror back to you or the world to guide you, but to listen within and allow your own divine guidance to rise up, because that's how you're made. It takes more energy to hold the illusions, to hold the perceptions, than it is to let them go and let love flow. When you go really deep into the cosmic consciousness of you, and you really start understanding how multidimensional you are and how multidimensional this world is that we live in and the universe that we live in, then it's really, really, really important that when new pieces of information come to you, don't try to fit it into the old perspective and the old perceptions. Table them. Go, oh, that's really cool. Oh, feel those vibrations, feel those sensations. Oh, this is just great stuff. And then table your interpretation of it. And then you get another piece and you get another piece, and then it will snap together in a brand new focus. You just have to relax into where you are. You cannot push the river. And you let the physical body catch up because it is all vibrational. Now, a quick word on perception. I've talked about in the course, Meet the Infinite You. And I don't know how much I've talked about it in the conversations, but this other thing about perceptions is that our brain fills in the blanks. And so we've got all of this information coming at us, and there is absolutely no way that it can process everything that's coming at us at any given second. I mean, we'd be like a vegetable. Yeah. And so what it does is it uses the selective perception to pull out the salient facts, to pull out the salient bits of information. And it just kind of magazzinato, sticks in storage everything else. This is why when you go into meditation and things will come up from your subconscious that your conscious mind didn't even really recognize that it knew. It's just that you didn't need to use that piece of information, or you didn't need to use that piece of the puzzle yet. Okay, so our brain is designed to fill in the blanks. That's why we don't see the world as a pixelated form. That's why we don't see the molecular structure of things. Although if you shift into that, it's really beautiful to see. The sacred geometry is amazing. But in general, it doesn't serve you to look at everything in its sacred geometry form while you're driving the car. You need to fill in all the blanks. Okay, so that's your perception. So that's the other thing, is when you change your perspective, just be aware of the fact that that is going to pull out different packets of information that will change your perception. Okay, so that you understand a little bit more about this whole mechanism of you, and it helps make you a little bit more fluid. Let's talk about you in the world. We all are 100% correct from our own perspective, because we each have our own way of reasoning ourselves out. It's partially survival mechanism. It's partially the desire to serve, if you're really deep into your spirituality. It's partially the desire to be loved, if you're way up in your human ego intellect. It's partially the desire that the world mirror back to you good things. That's if you're up here in the human. The deeper you are into your divine soul knowing, the less dependent you are on the world mirroring back to you. Okay, so your perceptions are shifting and changing at any given moment, but each person is reasoning themselves out based upon their perspective. This is why if you work really hard to get someone to see the world from your perspective, it's kind of a losing battle, because nobody can see the world quite the way you do, because nobody has had your set of experiences. But what you could do is you can share your story, and the other person will listen from their perspective, and they will try to understand from their perspective. And you could try to understand someone else's story, and you could draw parallels, because it's very much, if you look at movies and stories, there's certain storylines. The details might be different, but the storylines are very parallel. And the more you listen to other people's stories and you take away the appearance of the story, you can find the through thread, and you can find the commonalities. And it's really incredible, and it's really magical. Perceive and discern. And that is, perceive is different than perception. To perceive is to glean out information. Or also discern is to glean out the information. Okay, and so when we talk about listening to the vibrational communication of your divine soul knowing, we're asking you to shift your perspective towards your divine soul knowing and start to perceive those vibrations. And they'll be very subtle at first, but the more you do it and the more practiced you get at it, then that subtlety becomes a scream and a shout vibrationally. And then you got a whole conversation that goes on, and it moves and flows, and there's entire conversations that happen. But it starts with the perceiving, and then you want to discern what the communication is. So you have perspective, perception, perceive, and discern. And if you get a handle on, no matter where you are, just take the nugget that works for you now and then come back and listen to this video in another month or so, or another week or so, or tomorrow, or an hour from now, however. But if you start to understand, where is it time for me to change my perspective so that my perception can shift? And when it shifts deeper within, you'll start to perceive those vibrational communications, the vibrational communications from others. You'll be able to communicate on whole different levels, and you'll be able to discern what it means. You feed it back to yourself, saying, your ego intellect says, this is what I think, this is what I heard. Is that correct? Yes or no? The yes has an expansion, the no has a contraction or nothing. And so the conversation between your human aspect and your divine aspect, or your divine soul knowing, is very much like a conversation, communication 101, that you have with someone else. To bring the whole thing home. If infinite, omniscient, omnipotent, divine love is already flowing through you, cosmic consciousness is your natural state of mind. If I were able to go deeper, what would I do different? That's where you want to shift your perspective. And if it includes service to the world and reaching out to others to help lift them up, all the better for it.
Thank you so much for listening, and thank you so much for being interested in learning on how to live your light more fully and freely with emotional freedoms that you haven't even yet begun to dream of. And that gives you the courage and clarity to live your divine soul purpose. Now, just so that I play well with the algorithms here on YouTube, be sure to like the video. Please leave me a comment, because I do love more two-way conversations. And subscribe if you want to stay in touch with any of the new material that I'm putting out there.